Standard form is ax plus by equals c. No fractions or decimals. Ooh, sorry, that looks bad. That says no fractions or decimals. We'll work on it. It's Monday. You have an x-intercept is the point where a relation crosses the x-axis. I said relation because it's not always going to be linear. You could have quadratics or exponentials. We'll talk about that more. But wherever the thing you're graphing crosses the x-axis. So it's called an x-intercept. If you like football, then you could think about like an interception. Someone like crosses and grabs a ball from the other team, right? If you don't like football, then maybe that doesn't make sense to you. But an intercept, it's crossing the x-axis. And so it's called x-intercept. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. We've already talked about that. If we're talking about a point, here's what the point should look like. On the x-intercept, it'd be a number, comma, 0. Because on the x-axis, the y value is always 0. And for a y-intercept, it's 0, comma, a number. Because on the y-axis, x is always 0. Don't get those mixed up. We have 2x minus 3y equals 18. We're asked to find the intercepts. I'm going to start with my x-intercept. No, my y-intercept. So if I want to find the y-intercept, let me just label that so I know what I'm solving for. Y-intercept. I'm going to do that work right here. If I'm finding a y-intercept, then the x is always what? 0. That means I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So I'm going to put 2. Instead of writing x, I'm going to put a 0. Because if it's a y-intercept, x is always 0 because it's on the y-axis. Oops. Minus 3y equals 18. Oh, wow.
Wait, that was beautiful.
The y-intercept is not 18. Remember in standard form, a, b, and c, the numbers you see in standard form mean nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So now we can solve for y because we have one variable. So would you go ahead and solve this equation? 2 times 0 is 0. So we can basically cross that out, right? You could write 0 minus 3y, but it means the same thing. So you're left with negative 3y is equal to 18. Divide by 3 and you get y equals negative 6. You are not done because I asked for the y-intercept, which is a point. And so you need to actually write that the point is 0, comma, negative 6. Go ahead. If I want to solve for the x-intercept, what is y when we have an x-intercept? 0. Y is 0. And so we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to put 0 for y. That's 3 times 0. And then solve. Let's see, 3 times 0 is 0. So it goes away. So all I'm left with is 2x is equal to 18. You divide by 2. X equals 9. That's great and all, but the x-intercept is a point, so write it as 1. X is 9, y is 0. Now you have your 2 intercepts. Here and here. So because it's in slope-intercept form, you can just say immediately the y-intercept is 0, negative 6. You don't need to go through all that extra work. But the x-intercept is not done for you, so you would have to solve for that. So you are going to do some work for the x-intercept. So let's see, x-intercept. We're going to plug in 0 for y. So it would be 0 is equal to 2/5 x minus 6. Then you add 6 to both sides because you're solving for x. So 6 is equal to 2/5 x. How do I get rid of a fraction? Yeah, multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/2. Which on the right-hand side would multiply across to 10 over 10, which is just 1, so it goes away. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So x is equal to 15, and then write your final answer as a point, please. 15, comma 0. It says to graph the equations using intercepts. I know that you're capable of solving this equation for y and then using it in slope-intercept form. You've done that before. But x and y intercepts are a very convenient way to graph equations because all you need to make a line is 2 points. That's it. If you have 2 points, you can make a line. So I'm going to write that up there so you don't forget. Yep. If it says to graph using intercepts, and you need to solve for your intercept, so just like we did in the last one, you need to find your y-intercept and your x-intercept. So show the work for both. Do that now. Let's do the x-intercept. If you look at this graph right now, it does not have axes, so I'm going to draw them in. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to plot my 2 points. My first point is the y-intercept, which is 0, -4. My second point is 6, 0, which is on the x-axis. You have 2 points, you can make a line. So I'm going to try and make a straight line through these points. Oh, that's Notability does it for me. Pretty good. You have 2 points, you can make a line. That's a good final answer right there. What happens? I could solve for my x-intercept. Plug in 0 for y. Let's see, 12 plus 4 times 0 equals 36. That goes away. Oh no. Okay, this is a weird equation. It is in standard form. Well, almost in standard form. Let me show you what this would look like. If you were to solve this equation for y, so you notice there's not an x in this equation, that's because it's a special kind of linear function. You've seen it before. So if I subtract 12, then I get 4y is equal to, what, 24? So I get y is equal to 6. This is actually solving for my y-intercept. What kind of line is this, Luke?
Horizontal.
It is a horizontal line. And so this one you actually can't. You can solve for the y-intercept, but you can't solve for the x-intercept, as you saw. So if you see something and there's not both variables, then it's either a horizontal or a vertical line. So you're going to solve for that variable that is there and then graph it. So I go to y equals 6, which is up here, and then draw my horizontal line through it, because horizontal lines have a slope of 0 and are y equals. Horizontal and vertical lines. If I have the point -2, 4, a vertical line that goes through that point, if it's a vertical line, then it has to cross the x-axis. So the vertical line through this point would be x equals -2. Tell your neighbor, what's the horizontal line of this equation, or of this point, going to be? What equals 4? Y equals 4. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0 and are y equals. Vertical lines have a slope of undefined and are x equals. So I'll have one equation that's x equals and one that's y equals. Tala, what does x equal? Yeah. Adelaide, what does y equal? There you go. You have your equation, you have your labels. You need to solve for the x-intercept and solve for the y-intercept. When you have that, you need to scale your graph. I would recommend trying to go by 2s, because if you go by 1s, it probably won't fit on the grid. Graph your x and y-intercept because you only need 2 points to make a line. And then connect them. I'm going to let you try it on your own. So if you were to solve for your intercepts, if you do it correctly, like I did on the left-hand side, although I should have shown a little bit more work, you would get that the x-intercept is 30 and the y-intercept is 20. So we're going to plot these points. I would probably scale your graph by 2s should work. So if I go by 2, then every 5 squares is going to be 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 10, 20, yeah, 30, 40. So I'm going to do the same for the y-axis. Now that you've actually labeled your graph, you can plot the points. So I'd plot a point at 30 and at 20, and then I connect those dots. So this is what your graph should look like.